is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Kevin Hoop Show. I know that it's been a minute, but we are back with UFC 291. Amanda Nunes versus Irene Aldana. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Also with the co-main event, which is what we are going to be talking about in this video. Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. Like, come on, can we get any better of a main event and co-main event? That is perfect. I do believe that Charles Oliveira hasn't fought since he's lost to Islam Makhachev, and Beneil Dariush hasn't fought since he has beaten Matez Gamrot. So both of these guys, actually only one of these guys coming off of a win, the other one coming off of a loss. And, I do think it's going to be a very close fight. Both of these guys are heavily in the grappling game. They're both heavy grapplers. Charles Oliveira coming from jiu-jitsu. Beneil Dariush, I think, as well, coming from a jiu-jitsu background. Might also have a more judo type of style or possibly more of a wrestling type of style. But either way, I do think that these guys are both ground-based guys. Or at least, Charles Oliveira is very good at submitting people from the ground. Beneil Dariush, I think, has gotten some finishes with submissions, but I do know that his last 2 or 3 fights have came to a decision, so that's something that I'm kind of, has me on the fence of whether I want to go for Beneil Dariush or not. One thing, though, that has me on Beneil Dariush's side is that he's on like an 8 or 9 fight win streak right now. And that, to me, I do think that he's got a lot of, momentum behind him. I do think that he feels like he's the guy. He's built his confidence. He definitely is on a roll. And I do think that Charles Oliveira was on that same kind of run that Beneil Dariush is on right now, right up before he lost to Islam Makhachev, which, obviously put a little, speed bump in his whole entire journey right now of being the champ and defending the title and, cementing himself as one of the greatest lightweights to ever be in the UFC. And, I think this fight is a big fight to kind of see how he will come back, because Charles Oliveira, for those of you that don't remember, used to be a kind of inconsistent fighter. He did kind of lose a little bit more often, and then all of a sudden he kind of had his kid, and after he had, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 kids, but after he was a father, basically, he kind of realized, all right, I need to provide for my family. I need to perform well. I need to really step up my game if I want to provide my kids with what I want to provide them with. And I think once he had that realization, that's when he goes on this fight win streak, gets the lightweight belt, and defends it, one of the most that we've ever seen. So I do think that, him coming into this speed bump is going to be a really big, how is he going to answer? How is he going to learn from his mistake? How is he going to learn from that loss? And will we see an old Charles Oliveira after this loss? Will this spark more inconsistency? I think this fight's going to be a big kind of answer for that. Now, when it comes to Beneil Dariush, I know that he's fought Matez Gamrot most recently. He's also fought Tony Ferguson. But other than that, I really haven't seen any really big names, at least big names that have been big names recently or high-ranked guys that are in the UFC currently. I really don't think he's broken the top 5 yet, and this is definitely breaking the top 5. I believe Charles Oliveira is the number 1 contender right now. And, Charles Oliveira on the other side, not to constantly be talking about Charles Oliveira, but I do think that he has, number 1, been the more consistent fighter, which, I don't think that's anything against Beneil Dariush. I think it's just hard for him to find fights sometimes. But some of the most recent fights that Charles Oliveira has had is guys like Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, and, that's 3 top guys in the top 5 right now. And, those are some of his most recent fights, not to mention the Islam Makhachev fight, who's the current fucking champ. I'm not saying Beneil Dariush isn't there yet. I'm just saying that I don't think we've seen him recently up against someone that's been up there, someone that's been at the top, because those 3, even all 5 guys, Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, all those guys have been at the top 5 for a good amount of time now, at least a year or 2, I want to say. If not, maybe Michael Chandler broke in there a little, recently. But I do think that these guys have been at the top of this division for a good amount of time now. And Beneil Dariush just hasn't fought any of them. And I do think that this is going to be either a step up in his game. It's going to either be him showing himself, or, it's going to be an eye-opener for him. And that's nothing against Beneil Dariush. I've been a big fan of him in his most recent fights. I first saw him fight against Drew Dober back in 2019 or 2020, and, that was a big, okay, this guy is serious. And that's not saying that Drew Dober's the most, top guy either, but I do think that, those two kind of, when they did fight, was like, all right, I've heard of Drew Dober. He's got, that look on him, that douchebag kind of look. But, him beating Drew Dober, I started watching him. In each fight, he constantly showed up, and look at him now. He's on an 8-fight win streak. And that all started around that Drew Dober fight. I don't know if it was before or if it was that fight exactly, but, Beneil Dariush has been on a good fight win streak now for the past 2 to 3 years, and I do think that, it's going to be his time to shine either now or, very soon to come. Another thing that I think is going to be a big factor in this fight is the amount of rounds. And I tried to even check it. I believe it's going to be 3 rounds. I don't see why it would be 5. But if it is 3 rounds, which I think it's going to be, I do think it may favor Beneil Dariush right now. I do think that he's more used to fighting at 3 rounds and training for 3 rounds. And I think Charles Oliveira has been used to training for 5 rounds where you can, have a little bit more in the gas tank for those later rounds, and you may not have to start out early. And I think Beneil Dariush, him being used to 3 rounds, is going to be coming out hot, coming out early, and trying to put on a good pace for all 3 rounds. And that's not saying Charles Oliveira can't catch up, but I do think if the fight is 3 rounds, which I'm 99% sure it is, then I do think it may favor Beneil Dariush a little bit. Now, for those of you that don't know, this fight is now kind of like second confirmed. This is the second time that it's been confirmed. And, the first time that it was supposed to happen, it got canceled because apparently Charles Oliveira suffered a small injury. Now, as to what that small injury was, I don't know. But I hope that injury is good now, because I don't see why he would accept a fight and possibly have that chance of losing, because then that title shot is completely gone after that. And that's one thing I think that, we should also talk about. Charles Oliveira didn't get a rematch right away with Islam Makhachev, which I don't know exactly why. I don't know if there was a rematch clause in their contract or whatnot. I'm assuming not, if he's not going to be having a rematch for it. But usually when someone loses a title like Charles Oliveira and was defending it pretty convincingly, usually you'll see them have a rematch. And I think that rematch was going to be very entertaining for a lot of different reasons. Number one, not only was it because it ended a little early, and I think that, it might have been one of those nights where it wasn't Charles Oliveira's night. He just might have not been feeling himself. Who knows why? But that's one reason. And another reason I think that fight was very entertaining. The aspect that, you have 2 guys at the top of their game, and they're very experienced. They've had multiple fight wins under their belts. I think Charles Oliveira was on an 8 or 9 fight win streak. Islam Makhachev was either on like a 15 win streak or undefeated. And just having that behind them, I think, made a lot of people want to watch that fight. I think the second one would be even bigger, to be honest, but that's just my opinion. I don't do the books or anything, but I do think that Charles Oliveira is going to be, looking for another win this Saturday, and if he doesn't get it, it's going to be very unfortunate. But again, he's ranked number 1 right now. Beneil Dariush only ranked number 4. If I'm going to be putting money on it, which I probably will, you'll see that bet on Friday's video. I'm probably going to bet for Charles Oliveira to win the fight, probably by decision. Unless one of these guys slip up in the grappling department. I do think it's going to be more ground-based. Again, like I said, these guys are very heavy grapplers. Maybe we get the off chance that they just, sometimes you've seen 2 grapplers just not even try to go for a takedown. So, maybe we see something like that. Maybe they accept that, all right, we know we're both good on the ground. Let's just stay on the feet and see what happens. I highly doubt that's going to happen. I'm sure someone's going to try and go for a takedown, and from there, it's probably going to be very fun on the ground. And I say that, non-sarcastically. I am a big fan of the ground game. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you got Beneil Dariush or Charles Oliveira? It's going to be a very entertaining night. We've got Amanda Nunes fighting for the bantamweight title. That's going to be another good fight. Haven't seen her fight, I don't think, since she lost it to Juliana Pena. So it's going to be a good one. Tune in this Saturday. We are doing a live watch party. Probably going to be going live around 9 o'clock. Look at the link below. It's going to be a fun one. Tune in. And with that, guys, if you guys haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. And with that, have a great fucking day.